Donald Trump is destroying the ANC-Iran alliance without firing another shot. Here is how. So many of those who've been following South African news over the past few weeks might think that the ANC made a very clever strategic pivot, siding with the likes of Iran and building relations with, well, the Middle Eastern power who seemed to be in control of the Strait of Hormuz. We heard about how the Minister of Mining, Gwede Mantashe, decided to meet with Iranian representatives in South Africa over potential petrochemicals deals. And of course, the Iranian officials said that any South African-bound vessels would be free to travel through the Strait of Hormuz, meaning that oil and other supplies would go in uninterrupted, even though those bound for the US and the West would be blocked. But while this did, of course, sound like a very good thing for South Africa, it was pretty short-lived. After all, the United States has asserted control over the Strait of Hormuz, instituting a blockade which remains in effect as of the time of this recording. And you see, Donald Trump has pursued a very interesting strategy whereby he seems to be weakening the Iranian regime day by day without having to fire another shot. Now, in this video, we're going to discuss something critical which could have global implications. Not only are we going to look at how the Iranian regime could be collapsing from within, but the potential for further protests to happen within the country and evidence of a potential Iranian revolution bubbling under the surface, which will not only serve to strengthen the US and Israel and their allies, but weaken the Iranian ANC resistance axis and potentially destroy it once and for all. Now, before we get into this, could I please remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already? It's entirely free, and all you have to do is click on the subscribe button below the video. If you would like to enjoy some additional benefits such as members-only videos and support the channel, you can do so by becoming a Power Club member. All you have to do is click on the join button below. Now let's get started. So you might be wondering why I say that the US administration could defeat Iran without another shot being fired. And the answer lies within the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. You see, while many people thought, okay, South African-bound shipments would persist, this hasn't actually been the case because pretty soon after that announcement, the US instituted the blockade. Now here we actually have a press statement from US Central Command Commander Brad Cooper, and he explains, "Today, US forces achieved a significant milestone after successfully redirecting the 42nd commercial vessel attempting to violate the blockade. This is a reflection of the outstanding work America's sons and daughters in uniform are doing to prevent maritime commerce from entering or exiting Iranian ports. Right now, there are 41 tankers with 69 million barrels of oil that the Iranian regime can't sell. That's an estimated $6 billion plus from which Iran's leadership cannot financially benefit. The blockade is highly effective and US forces remain fully committed to total enforcement." Now, might I just remind you that the reason why this is so important is because apart from the Iranian economy, these sorts of revenues could be used for other things. They could be used for further recruitment of military personnel to replace those who've already been eliminated in the ongoing war, and of course to rebuild infrastructure and Iran's weapons arsenal, which has also been severely depleted. We've seen how the Air Force has been almost entirely destroyed. The Navy is around 90% destroyed, according to the US. And we've also seen Israel claim that around 80% of Iran's total missile launches have been dismantled as well. And so the US and Israel have actually managed to achieve aerial superiority, aerial control over Iranian skies. Now, as a result of the blockade, it's not only oil that has been affected. Let's take a look at this Fox News update for more information.
We take a live look now at the U.S. Senate hearing where the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane are testifying on the War Department budget. Notice the critical timing when we talk budget. the Iran conflict. President Trump's naval blockade of Iranian ports is strangling Iran's economy now, blocking exports and now even some imports, thereby slashing the country's revenue by millions of dollars each day. Some estimates give Iran a few short weeks before full economic collapse. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. The numbers, staggering. That country, losing. How much? A whopping $435 million a day in economic activity. That includes nearly $140 million in lost oil revenue. The cost of living is soaring, with the food inflation exceeding 112%.
So there we have it. We see how around $130 million were lost in oil revenue daily. That's according to this Fox News report at the time of reporting. We saw $435 million in daily economic activity being affected by this. And then, of course, food inflation getting out of control and the currency collapsing. Even though it is already pretty depleted, it's collapsing even further. Now, of course, as Iran International explains in this article, we see how these lost revenues aren't only affecting Iranians' livelihoods, it can even mean the difference between life and death in extreme cases. So as explained here, medicine prices in Iran have surged sharply in recent weeks, with some drugs rising by as much as 380%, according to reports received by Iran International, as the country grapples with soaring inflation, a collapsing currency, and worsening wartime disruption, as we saw in the previous Fox News update. Now, this is incredibly important for us to note because, first of all, we understand that innocent civilians are heavily impacted by this, but we could also see the IRGC and the Iranian leadership affected by this as well, because after all, yes, they may be able to get priority when it comes to receiving medications. The medicine still has to come from somewhere. And of course, not only are many of these military leaders and political leaders potentially ill and facing flu and other diseases, but they could also require medication due to their war injuries that they've sustained. So let's not forget that this could have widespread implications not only on Iranian civilians, but the leadership and the current regime as well. We also then have the rolling internet blackouts, which have hit a record high in Iran throughout the country's history, in fact. So as explained here, Iran's near-total shutdown of the global internet reached 60 days on Tuesday. This article was from April the 28th, worsening economic losses and social restrictions. And we see that the disruption has since stretched beyond 1,400 hours, with most users still cut off from global networks. And of course, this affects businesses. As explained, it affects people's ability to communicate. It affects the telecommunications industry within Iran. Really, no good comes of this. The only reason for the blackouts to continue is for the Iranian government to continue to suppress information. Now, as we take all of this information into account, it becomes very clear that Iran will not have the bandwidth to handle South Africa and their relationship with the ANC. Clearly, any South African-bound vessels from Iran will not be able to reach their destination as long as the US blockade remains intact. We won't see Iran striking petrochemical deals as Gwede Mantashe wanted, because ultimately they have far bigger things to worry about. And what's more, well, we're already seeing the regime enter into panic mode. You see, many people will say, oh, Iran has dealt with sanctions and blockades before, they'll find ways around it. And that could be true to a small extent. But what we are also seeing is the regime crumble under pressure, and they've recently started to make some desperate moves showing just how panicked they really are. So on the 4th of May, we saw the UAE getting hit by Iranian missiles. And this is the first time that this has happened since the current ceasefire went into effect. So in this press release from the UAE Ministry of Defense, they explain how 4 UAVs, which are drones, 3 cruise missiles and 12 ballistic missiles were fired by Iran at the UAE, although they did confirm that the defense systems were successful in intercepting these projectiles. Now, this is a very important thing to note because, as UAE officials have mentioned multiple times, the UAE is a source of jealousy for Iran because ultimately the UAE has a very strong, respectable reputation globally. They've got very good relations with Israel, the US, and the collective West, and they do very well economically. And so what certain UAE officials have even gone on to say, including certain spokespeople for the Foreign Affairs Department, is that Iran is basically jealous of the UAE, and that is why they've actually fired more missiles and drones at the UAE than anybody else, including Israel, since the start of this war. Because ultimately, Iran wants the UAE to do badly because they know they can never actually compete with the UAE. They can never do better and actually compete on the UAE's level. So in order to be, well, competitive with the UAE, they have to drag the Emirates down. And it appears that this is what they're trying to do. But there's something else at play as well. You see, Iran is getting increasingly frustrated with the blockade. And while they do seem to be playing along with this whole ceasefire negotiation that's going on, we know that their leadership is in disarray. Nobody's quite sure who's in charge. And it all of a sudden seems that because of the blockade getting to them, they're acting out and they may want to return to fighting as a way of basically loosening the United States' grip on the Strait of Hormuz. And so this seems to be the first move in that kind of a plan. Now, you might be wondering, well, what's going to be the consequence of all of this? Clearly, Iran's economy is crippled, its military is struggling, its relationship with the ANC and other foreign actors also seems to be deteriorating. What is going to happen within the country? And this brings me to the final point, which is that it actually seems as if a revolution may be brewing under the surface, and that certain people might return to protest in their tens of thousands in a final attempt to unseat the regime. Let's take a look at this important video and see what's going on.
We have one leader, and that is called Reza Shah Pahlavi II. My leader is not President Trump. My leader is not even Bibi, who I love as the most popular foreign leader inside Iran. Bibi is the most right now, not Trump, but Bibi. My leader, my loyalty goes to Reza Shah Pahlavi II. He's not just my leader, he's the leader of the majority, super majority, vast majority of the Iranian people who took to the streets in millions and gave their lives in tens of thousands on January 8th and January 9th, which was the call to protest by who? By Bibi? By Trump? No, by Reza Shah Pahlavi II. So this man he is the one who talks here. He is the organizer, the actual organizer. He is the actual mobilizer. He created platforms for defection. He created platforms for mobilizing people. It's very new. Just a few months after he launched a platform that is called Immortal Guard of Iran. Mm-hmm. If you study what is Immortal Guard of Iran historically, you will understand what it is. It's a decentralized form of mobilization, decentralized because of security.
But what is happening on the ground right now in terms of preparations for returning to the streets?
The Iranian people are waiting for the next call to protest by the Shah of Iran. They are getting prepared. That is the plan. Getting prepared for the next uprising, which will be the call to protest by the Shah of Iran. But this time will be even much more different because the Iranian people, they know that the previous time they came in millions without being armed, but it didn't happen. But this time it will be different. I'm not going to give you details, things that what we are exactly doing because it will defeat the purpose of this, what we are doing. So, but there is mobilization under the framework of what the Shah launched, and that is called Immortal Guard of Iran. Mm-hmm. And the Immortal Guard of Iran is going to crush the IRGC, and it's going to replace the IRGC soon, perhaps within months. I am not sure. I'm not giving you the exact time, but we will be victorious. Anyone who placed their bet against the Shah in the land of the Shahs, the Shah will never die. So if you place your bet against the Shah of Iran, you will lose, because Iran is not the land of the mullahs. It's the land of the Shah. In history of Iran, always the Shah of Iran comes back and liberates his country. If you read Shahnameh, for example, it's in our literature, in our history, and everything. That is the historical cycle of Iran's history. It's the historical truth of Iran's history. Thank you very much.
So when we take a look at all the evidence, what we see is pretty clear. There is a chokehold on the Iranian economy. It is being drained. The Iranian government is being isolated. Vital supplies are not coming in. And they're also not receiving a lot of revenues from shipments that are meant to be going out. Furthermore, we see the desperation that's kicking in within Iran, whereby the government has now decided, well, they're going to start launching missiles at the likes of the UAE and test the ongoing ceasefire. Beyond that, it seems that the Iranian opposition is gaining confidence. They're getting ready to take to the streets yet again, and this time, as this one representative explained, it will be different. Ultimately, it seems as if those days of Iran buddying up with the ANC are numbered. Gone will be the days of ANC members going to the Iranian embassy in Pretoria and signing the Book of Condolences. Gone will be the days that the Islamic regime is able to hold lectures at the University of Pretoria in political science classes. And gone will be the days of the ANC being able to snub the United States and the West, and really the free world in general, in favor of these kinds of tyrannical regimes. Ultimately, it seems as if this specific conflict is going one way, and I'm sure many of us will be keen to see what happens. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more content. Until next time, I'm Matthew Cohen, and this is the Power Pod.